graphing inequalities in standard form. So we've learned to make lines in standard form. You've learned to graph inequalities. We're just combining two things that you already know today. Right? So if I had an inequality that looked like this, 3y plus 2x is greater than 6. The first thing is just pretend this is a line. Pretend it doesn't have a greater than sign. And just graph that line. Now we recognize with x and y on the same side that this is standard form. And the way to graph standard form is to find the y-intercept and the x-intercept. So I'm going to make x 0. When x is 0, we have 3y is greater than 6. I'm just pretending that's an equal sign in my head. Divide both sides by 3, and y is greater than or equal to 2. So y-intercept is going to be 2. When x is 0, that point is right there on the graph. Okay, now forget about that. Go back and find the x-intercept. So when y is 0, we're left with 2x, pretending this is an equal sign in my head. Divide both sides by 2, and we get x, pretending that's an equal sign, 3. I'm going to put that on my graph. 1, 2, 3. I have 2 points. Now I'm going to keep a couple things in mind as I graph it. So I'm going to keep in mind that I want to make my lines as long as possible because I know that I will be graphing this as an inequality. Then I'm going to go back and look at the original equation. So I've graphed my line. I'm done with the first half of this problem. Okay, this is great. This is awesome. Now I'm going to move on to the second half of this problem. The first thing I look at is this sign. Since it doesn't have an equals underneath, right? It doesn't have that. I know this is supposed to be a dotted line. I'm going to go back and just change it to a dotted line. So now I have my long dotted line. Now I need to figure out which side of that line to shade on. So I'm going to plug in this point, 0, 0. That means if I plug in 0, 0, 0 plus 0 is greater than 6. That's false. So I shade away from this point. I shade on the other side of the line. And that's it. I'm done now. I did the inequality part. Let's do another example. I'll leave that up in case you're not right. So what if I had this one? 4x minus 2y is less than or equal to 8. Let's pretend that that is just an equal sign. Pretend that's just a line. I'm going to make x 0. So I have negative 2y. Let's just pretend that's equal to 8. Right? It's actually greater than, but in my head as I graphed it, I pretend it's equals. Divide both sides by negative 2. Y less than or equal to a positive divided by a negative is a negative. 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. And so my y-intercept is down here at y equals negative 4. Forget about that. Let's make y 0. When y is 0, right, just covering that up, we have 4x less than or equal to 8. Divide both sides of that by 4, and we get x is less than or equal to 2. That's my x-intercept. Connect those, and I'll be done with the first half of this problem. Yeah. Now you might get used to just as you make your line, you can look and see if it's going to be solid or not. Right? So in this case, I know this should stay a solid line. I just have to figure out which side of it to shade on. I'm done with all this. I'm just looking at my original equation. I'm going to plug in the point 0, 0. Is 0 minus 0 less than or equal to 8? That's true, right? 0 is less than or equal to 8. That's true. So I'm going to shade towards 0, 0, towards the origin here. And so it's this half of the plane. Questions about that? So these will be so much easier if you treat them as two separate problems, I think. First, you worry about graphing the line. Just graphing the line. Second, you shade. You figure out which side to shade on. And you always do that by plugging in 0, 0. If it's true, shade towards 0, 0. If it's false, shade away from 0, 0. Awesome. Questions?